The second habit in Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is begin with the end in mind. We've discussed this idea of working backwards a lot, but recent conversations have highlighted to me that there's a need to explore the ultimate direction that the market is heading so we can better articulate why we are doing what we're doing. To me, the heart of this discussion is logistics. Internally, we at Monster Creek Mushrooms have discussed logistics quite a bit. I believe this will be the great disrupting force in the specialty mushroom world, and we are planning our growth accordingly. The 3 primary factors in this discussion are quality, total sales, and pricing, and they all feed into the great question of how to compete in a market that's being disrupted. For the sake of not writing a novel, I'll just deal with the issue of quality in this post. So we deliver 3 or 4 times a week to different restaurants on established routes. This means we can pick mushrooms every day as they're growing, right at their peak quality, and they're delivered either that same day or next to the consumer. Given that most gourmet mushrooms deteriorate rapidly, this means that no other distribution network will be able to beat us in the quality of our product. It also opens up a wide field of mushroom varieties that many restaurants have never heard of or considered because they could never get them within their extremely limited shelf life. It appears to me then that the direct distribution model really isn't competing or disrupting the existing mushroom industry at all, but rather is creating a whole new market segment that's been massively underserved in the United States as a whole. Now, other countries, not so much, but definitely the United States. It is a point of interest that the majority of restaurants that buy our mushrooms have never ordered mushrooms from any other source aside from buttons or shiitake, maybe an occasional wild mushroom. They've also had a couple restaurants drop because they could get oysters for $30 a pound less from Valley Produce or Cisco. But they were back a month or so later, and they've been loyal customers ever since because they could not get a consistent product anywhere else. Ultimately, we spoiled them, and now they can't accept anything offered elsewhere because they expect better. So that's where we are now, but where are we going? It seems apparent that more and more growers are popping up every day, which means competition is ultimately going to heat up and the market's going to mature. It will most likely happen at different paces throughout the country, but based on the trends I'm seeing, I expect there to be 3 main phases in the growth of the market. So the next 5 to 6 years, and this article was written 2 years ago in January of 2019. So take that into account. But the next 5 to 6 years will primarily be market development. Most of the new growers will fail or remain too small to make much impact, but enough will survive to dramatically affect the mushroom supply. Current projections of demand for specialty mushrooms are pure nonsense, because much of the country doesn't even know they're an option or have such low quality examples that they're not a very appealing option anyway. As more varieties become available, I expect demand to pick up organically. In the race to fill this demand, many farms will expand by any means possible. So the 5 years beyond that, which would be 2025 to 2030, will be a time when the market shows its first signs of maturity. The true demand will become established as supply begins to reach it. We will still have latecomers in the market, and I think that there will be a few areas where supply will actually begin to outpace demand. And that's when things start to commoditize. In the late part of the 2020s and continuing through the 2030s will be a time of mushroom farmers tightening their belts. As supply and demand stabilizes, prices will fall, and those farms that can't absorb the price drop will go out of business. Those farms that have a lean system and have solved the logistics puzzle will ride the waves and take large swaths of the market. During this time, the barrier to entry will rise and the market will become established, with those farms who were well positioned to grow during the 2020s planted as market leaders. So how will the market be won? A natural topic of discussion in the mushroom world has been when to level up and focus on growing, while letting the distribution networks handle the legwork of getting the mushrooms to the consumer. We made a tough choice last year of dropping our last farmers market. Sacrificing the higher price point of the market for the greater consistency of restaurant sales has been a huge boon to us. It seems reasonable then to assume that dropping distribution entirely would provide a similar boost, but I feel like there's a trap here. This one decision is critical to every single aspect of a mushroom business, and it must not be taken lightly. The difference between dropping farmers markets in favor of restaurants and instead selling to a distributor is that the first transition is a change in the type of direct distribution, whereas the latter puts your mushrooms through the crucible of undetermined amounts of time in storage and transport. The type of distribution also informs your practices as a grower. For example, selling through a distributor encourages farmers to focus on one primary metric, and that is weight. It's relevant in this discussion that I noticed a bizarre phenomenon this Thanksgiving. A 15-pound turkey looked like it should be about a 10-pound bird. Inspection of the label showed that this was in fact a turkey and water product. It's apparently become standard practice to soak a turkey and inject its meat with water in order to charge customers for an inferior product that at least matches the weight of the bird that they're wanting. That's what we're seeing in the mushroom world of distributor-peddled mushrooms. These mushrooms are being grown in too humid conditions to maximize the weight of the fruit bodies, then sprayed with bleach water to fight the runaway microbial growth. None of this is strictly bad, I guess, but it provides a noticeably inferior product out the gate. And then this soggy mushroom and water product degrades even more by the time it reaches its destination. This also stifles the desire to grow many varieties, as you're pretty much left with blue oysters, trumpets, and shiitake that put on enough weight to be worth the grower's time and last long enough to be worth the distributor's time. So because we made a choice to maintain our distribution network, we are able to focus intently on systems and methods that maximize quality and consistency. Andrew also has his breeding program and wild strain collection that has provided phenomenal value as well. So we grow with a lower relative humidity than average and spend the extra cash on the ultrasonic humidity systems that need to be replaced about once a year because it provides an unmatched growing environment. We're also religious about cleaning, as anyone watching Andrew's YouTube videos should know by now. We sell by the case, as in by the volume, not weight. So we can charge a set amount for all oysters based on the actual amount of mushroom that we deliver, rather than water weight. We also spend more to make our product reliable. We run the steamer on a 12-hour heat-up cycle to maintain full heat for 24 hours. Now that was then, at this point, we're actually doing more like 24 hours total, and it works well enough. Some people say this is overkill, but we suffer from remarkably low contamination rates, even growing in the South, where contamination is a common problem. We put in the extra time and money to ensure we can be reliable, and all of this builds excellent relationships with our clients. This, in turn, means we have a very good handle on the market we are serving, and we have a rich understanding of what the market wants and how much demand actually exists in the area. So what about total sales? That's a complicated one because it's an area that a large farm selling through distributors may have an advantage over the next few years. I think it's a poor route to follow, though, and I'll explore that in the next post. So P.S., feel free to tear these ideas apart. I made this post a couple years ago just to formalize some of the ideas I've been exploring and to flesh out my rationale for the growth that we are pursuing. I haven't seen much in the way of this type of forward-looking conversation in the mushroom world, and I think that it's a conversation worth having. So feel free to tear me apart in the comments. I'm sure you guys will be happy to do so, and hopefully we can all grow together.